All right, good morning. I'm going to run through the use of a couple of tools that you are going to require to use as the semester goes on, because there's a couple of videos out there online, and that while they're semi-useful, they don't really give you the whole idea as to what it is that I'm going to be looking for. So I'm going to give you a quick run through on how these are used, and give you some actual usage on these on some pieces. So the first thing I'm going to show you is this guy. And I'm doing this single-handedly, so some of the stuff's going to be a little bit kind of in and out of focus, but we'll do the best I can. I'll do the best I can. There is no we here. So this is a cam gauge. It's called a cam type gauge, or it's actually just called a cam gauge. And what this is for the measurement of welds in a number of different ways. And I'm going to show you how that works here in a couple of minutes. But it's a very useful piece of equipment, as simple as it may look. They are available in a bunch of different places. You can get them at Princess Auto. You can find them at Air Liquide, Praxair, all those types of places. You can even find them on Amazon. And this is one thing I'm going to ask that you need to purchase for this course, because you're going to be doing some inspections and you're going to need this. Now, this isn't a tool that you're going to only use this semester and then never use again. As a welder, this is something that you will probably end up using through your entire career. It's good for measuring angles and that type of stuff before you weld it, and it's good for measuring things after you've welded. So it's a good piece of equipment, and you will use this throughout your welding career, so it's a good investment. The other thing that I'm going to ask you to get is a set of fillet weld gauges. Okay, this is a fillet weld gauge kit from Harris, but you can buy them pretty much anywhere. Again, Praxair, Air Liquide, Princess Auto, get them online, all that type of stuff. These ones are also something that you are going to end up using, because this is how you would measure any type of fillet weld that you've completed, and make sure that all your sizes are correct. And I'm going to run through that here right now. So again, you're going to need to purchase those two items. I do need you to purchase them fairly quickly, because after this demonstration, after this week, next week, there is going to be an assignment that requires you to take a piece of material that you are going to select from your repertoire of practice plates that you've been doing in class, and you're going to start doing some measurements. And I don't really care how perfect your piece is. As a matter of fact, it would be better if you had a couple of indications in them, so that way you have something to measure. So don't go for the super perfect one and say that it's perfect. I need you to find something that's less than perfect, so that you know what you're looking for, because no one ever lays down a perfect weld all the time, all day, every day. It happens. It doesn't matter how good you are, or how well you've been doing this, or how long you've been doing it. Everybody has those moments, and that's what these tools are for. So we're going to start with a simple fillet weld gauge. So I have a weld here, and this weld is, well, I did it as a demonstration, because there are things with this weld that don't add up, and I did that on purpose. So I'm gonna actually take it as a 3/4 inch weld. So on this gauge, right here, it says 3/4 inch. Now, how this gauge works is it's measured from the bottom to here. It does not measure this way. If you look carefully, you can see that the distance from here to here is greater than from here to here. That's to take into account things like improper leg length, and you're going to see that here right now. So I'm going to try to do this with one hand and keep it in focus. Take your fillet weld gauge, and from the bottom here to this point is 3/4 inch. And so now I'm going to place this here. And you can see that right there, a little bit high, so let's move down a touch. Right there, okay, that's exactly 3/4 inch. Now, but here, it's a little higher than 3/4 inch. Now, if I move way down here, it's right on, and if I look closely, it might be a touch low, okay? That is showing that the vertical leg length from the center point of your weld joint to here, right here, taller than 3/4. Right here, it's actually 3/4. Right there, it's a little bit low. So to measure this leg, we just simply flip it around. Flip it like this, and we find that this leg length, see how it's not making contact? You can see that the leg length on the horizontal is long from here out. Move it down a little bit, still long. Move it a little bit more, still long. So what that tells us is that this leg length is more or less 3/4 of an inch high, but this leg length is over 3/4 of an inch. Now, on the other side of that is 7/8. So we're going to find the other fillet weld gauge. It says 3/4. Now this is going to be for your throat. This is your throat depth. So that says 3/4 of an inch. Now this is measured by putting both ends on your fillet. And again, notice how it's significantly larger. This does not give you any terms of length for your leg length. It doesn't give you any measurement for your leg length. All you're looking at is this point right here. And it makes contact there, almost, pretty much. But you move down, no contact. Oh, right there at that very spot it makes contact. Down there, no contact. Over here, just barely contact. So what that tells you is that the throat throughout this weld, pretty much throughout the whole weld, is not 3/4 of an inch. So this fillet weld, if it were to be a 3/4 inch fillet weld, isn't big enough. It's low here and low here. So you'd have to add passes in to bring it up to 3/4 of an inch. That's how the fillet gauges work, okay? So now we're going to move on to the cam gauge. And the cam gauge has a bunch of other neat features that make this quite a useful piece of equipment. So the first thing that we're going to do is, we noticed here, move that back a bit, we noticed that here, that the throat, that the effective throat here at the weld wasn't quite deep enough. Well, let's find out where it is. We can find that with this guy. Now, if you loosen this thumb screw at the back, don't take it right off, just loosen it a little bit. This guy pops out. Now, I'll try to zoom it in where you can see it. It measures, what it's doing is it's measuring from the point, so it's measuring from the point, which is your 0 line, and then it measures back in terms of depth. So from 0, that would be 1/4 inch, 3/8, 7/16, 1/2 inch. See where that's going? So how that works is, I'm just gonna tighten up just a little bit. All right. Have it sit inside. Again, bring it up here tight. Okay, bring it up tight. Tighten the thumb screw so that it's just making contact. See how it's touching here and here and here. 3 points making contact, just like a ladder. Tighten that thumb screw a bit. And that tells us that really this has right around 1/2 inch of theoretical throat. Well, that's not enough. Okay, that's obviously not where it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be 3/4. All right, make sense? That's how that works. So that gives you an actual measurement of what this is supposed to be. A couple other things that this little guy does. Well, for starters, it's got a ruler on the back of it. So if you just need to make a quick measurement, you need to find out what just a quick measurement is. You've got it in inches, and you also have it in millimeters. You've got a groove plate. You've got a weld on a groove plate. Got quite a bit of misalignment here. Well, this can give you measurements for misalignment. On the front, you can see that it's got this pivoting section here, and it has these gradients across it. The first section is in inches, second half is in millimeters. You have a line here that says inches, and then over here you have a line in millimeters. If I take this plate and I want to know how much misalignment this plate has, I can simply put that flat side. It doesn't have to be both sides. This is actually a more or less a machined surface, so that if it's on both, great. But notice, that's not going to give me an accurate measurement because see the gap? But you can just use the one end. Just be careful and don't let it tip. I'm going to set it here, push it down so that the pointer points, just makes contact, lift it off, and I can see that this reads that it has just over a 1/16 of height difference. That's the misalignment. Where is that? There it is. Okay, so there's your misalignment. Get the light just right. Okay, so that gives you the misalignment. How about reinforcement? Well, it'll give you the reinforcement as well. And here's your first lesson on inspection. We know that this plate is misaligned. This side is higher than this side. When you're measuring from the high side, not the low side, right? Because when I measure this, if I measure the top of that reinforcement right there at that point, that as close as I can. I measure that reinforcement at that point. It's measuring out as flush, right? It measures out as flush. If I measure here, it's going to give me a measurement of just over a 1/16. But if we grind this off to make this, to try and keep and maintain the thickness of the plate, the problem is this says it's 1/16 of an inch height. That's flush. In reality, if you were to split the difference, it's low. So really, your measurement goes from the high side, not the low side. Okay, so that's one way that you can tell. You can actually also measure undercut. This actually has gradients that go down below 0. There's not very many of them because you shouldn't have that much undercut. But here's how you measure undercut. We have a pipe. All right, not a very nice pipe. Not a very good day. Okay, I can also measure the reinforcement here, right? Take my piece, measure that. That has a reinforcement height of just under 1/8, which is fine. But over here, we have sadness, very much sadness. Now, keep in mind, when you're doing these measurements, you can't turn it on the pipe because it will tip on the pipe. It has to be as straight as you can make it. Right, at that point. So what do? We find our way to the lowest crater point here, put the point of the cam gauge down into the bottom part of the crater, and we can measure at this spot. We have basically a 1/16 of an inch. Can you see that? There it is, right? That's a 1/16 of an inch undercut at that point. So that gives you your low spot. The other thing that this little bad boy can do is it can measure angles. So if you want to make sure that the angle of your pipe bevel is acceptable, that can be measured as well. If you curl this out even further, you get degrees. And how that works is simply set it on the pipe until it makes contact. That was a lucky guess. Okay, till it makes contact, and now it's tight against that beveled edge. We pick it up, read it. It is approximately 35 degrees, because if you look, actually 38 degrees. 30, 35, about 37.5 degrees. Check it again, let's make sure. Yep, that's nice and tight. About 38 degrees, 37.5 or 38 degrees. That is the bevel on that. All right, that's the bevel on that edge. Okay. So that's basically how this works, and those are the measurements. That's the way that I'm going to ask you to use this. Again, like I said, I would like you to grab a piece of material that you have welded on in class in the last couple of weeks. Or in your last class, something that's not super pretty. I don't care if it's stick, flux core, MIG, what have you. as long as it has some sort of measurable amounts. It can't be just a bird nest of horror, but something that has a weld and something that's not perfect. I don't want something that's perfect. And you're going to measure it, take a picture of it, of what it is that you've measured, and then you're going to report your findings to me, and that's going to be part of a visual inspection. So keep that in mind, hang on to a piece as you go about your week, and that'll be one of the assignments coming up very soon. Again, if you have any questions, please email me, and we can get you solved, right? We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.